obviously, you guys are doing something right because you both ended up getting the attention of major labels.
Indeed.
During that era that y'all got those major labels' attention, that was an era where that was the ultimate goal for every artist to get a record deal. So what was that moment like for you guys? And was it everything that you thought it would be? And did that change your life in any way?
That's 3 questions.
Yes. Take your time.
Well, it was
You forgot the first one.
It was an uphill battle, man. My record deal was probably one of the most trying times of my life. I mean, you consider I signed a record deal. It was like of course, it was funny business. This business is funny business, but like the basis of it was Letter to My Son, and Letter to My Son, although, that's like my calling card for a lot of people, I was living it. I appreciate that. I don't know who was clapping on that one. I appreciate the love. But, I was really living it, in real time. So, I'm signed to a record deal, and like that's the push. So, we're going to do interviews and we're doing promo, and through everything, Letter to My Son is, that's all they wanted to just touch on or to speak on. And in a lot of spaces, a lot of people I was meeting for the first time, was meeting me in the worst moment of my life. Mm-hmm. So, it was impossible to maneuver through it. Like, they wanted a happy, chipper, like, they wanted me to be a character, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, in real life, like, I might have just called 30 times to see my son right before I walked in the room to do the interview. Mm-hmm. And I would do an interview, and people, whoever I'm doing it with feel like I ain't I ain't animated enough. And like I said, in real time, I was really going through hell. So, and it was like nobody really really acknowledged that. They looked at it like it was a record. It was a cool record. You said some shit. I'm like, yeah, I'm going through the shit that I'm saying. But I want to say your second question was it all I thought it would be or something like that?
Yes.
No, it wasn't nothing like I thought it would be. I thought I was gonna sign, and in real time, my deal was like for like $3 million. So, I was like, oh shit, $3 million. Sat with the fucking the attorneys and the finance department, and in real time it was like $300,000. And ooh. I mean, that ain't bad. That's still a great number, but you say 3 million and then say 300,000, it don't feel the same way. Right. But either way, it wasn't quite like I pictured it, but I learned so much from it that if I could do it again, I would have done the exact same thing. I'm better off now than I've ever been in my career, and I don't think I would have had these tools had I not experienced the shit I experienced.
Oh, true. Lito?
What was the third question?
Third question is, how did it change your life?
Okay. My experience was a little different than Craig's. It was just different. It was at a different point in my life. That same time I was talking about, I dropped out of college, and I think within 4 months I had a production deal, and maybe 3-4 months after that we inked a major deal with Universal Motown, Cash Money. For me, as a 19-year-old that grew up, pretty much idolizing these people that I'm going into business with, I can admit that maybe I was a little bit jaded and caught in the lights of it all, and it was like dream come true on one level. But the same that Trip said, I wouldn't, if I could go back, I'm not sure I would change anything, because everything I gained in terms of information and knowledge probably helped like mold me and to push forward from. It's less regret and more so like I looked at that as an extension of me going to school, because of
definitely further education.
Yeah, the hands-on learning experience of it. It was not entirely what I expected, but more than anything, that was such a lesson that, like, had I just kept doing what I was doing to get there, I probably would have went that much further, that much faster. I also like care to think, had I maximized that situation or opportunity, it's likely that my career would have I would have plateaued. I would have reached some peak you know, because as it goes with major labels, you're only as valuable as your expectation of sales or whatever, you know, a deal might be worth. One, that's a loan, and two, once that expires or if it does or doesn't recoup, you know, you could just sit on the shelf. Your rights, you know, could go with it, and otherwise. And I was fortunate enough to be able to walk away from that deal with the ability to just do my own thing. I wasn't super in the red because truthfully, I didn't release that much music while I was doing the deal. But I picked up so much, like the work ethic aspect. There was so much going on there to take from and apply on my own scale of doing it that it did change my life, but maybe in a very like indirect sense. But yeah, I don't regret it either.
Absolutely.
So you were saying like you guys learned from the situation. What is 3 things that you feel like you took away from that experience that you could apply to your career moving forward?
One, like I said, work ethic. I did learn that those guys, that situation I was a part of, that they did earn, you know, what we saw, the glitter, the glamour, like they got there by putting in the work. You know, there was never a time when I was around that there wasn't work being done. And so I definitely saw that like this is what it takes to get to the other level of success.
Yeah.
The other thing that I learned was to think bigger and farther than I could see. You know, I'm born and raised in Nashville, and I used to always hear people say things like, do it for the city, or I'm doing it for, and you know, I love this place. Like I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. But I could see how that like could almost lower your ceiling as an artist for thinking that. And that's the same way of like in that situation, it was like we need a club record, we need a single. And as an artist, that's very limited. You know, maybe when I made Grey Goose and we were going to the club 5 times a week, and that's how I was living. That, you know, that's the soundtrack to it. But the album I dropped yesterday, I couldn't probably be further from that space.
Yeah.
And so like just I was able to expand my mind. I was able to see and experience some things that I never like fathomed. I never thought was possible for myself. Like I said, that was a pretty relatively short time span to go from selling CDs out of a backpack, out of the trunk of a car, to on a tour bus, or you know, seeing full production video shoots, or you know, hearing my record played in places I'd never even been to before. And you said 3 things. The third thing was to trust your gut and you know, stick to your guns or your roots, because I do believe that I watched this guy put out 11 and 1 pending, so he got honor that bet. It's 12 project this year, and that's how I came into the game. You know, when I dropped my first mixtape, I dropped a project every 3 months for the next year plus. And there's been parts of my career where I think I probably maxed out releasing 6 projects in a year, a few different years. I've released 2 projects in a week before, just, you know. And that's how I came into this. The music's only as valuable as it's shared. You know, what is a work of art if no one enjoys it?
Yeah.
And getting in that system taught me that, like, all right, this is big business. This is commerce. So of course, as people invest and they got a invested interest, you gotta kind of play by their rules and move on those terms. It's like, well, if I can invest in myself, then I can just move accordingly, because I got here by just saying, here, I made this. Here, y'all check it out. Hope you enjoy it. So those would be my 3 things.
And it worked for you.
Yeah, I second that. I think one of the greatest things I learned was independence. You know, I ain't never really been able to follow instructions or take orders, and you know, as a parent or as a responsible adult, to, you know, you can't just say I can't have a boss. If that's, you know, if I know that's how I'm rocking, then I gotta go And you know, I got to go the extra mile to make sure I'm doing what I have to do to be my my own boss. I can't just be chilling. So you know, with that situation, I learned everybody else's roles. And you know, after or from learning everybody else's roles, I learned how to later on I learned how to delegate. I learned how to use my own resources to make those kind of things happen. And you know, like he said, I learned that for the most part, this is business. Although it's it's art to me. It's it's my livelihood. It's therapy to me. But at the end of the day, it's still it's still business. You know, I can't do none of this shit for free. I can't go get an album cover done for free. I can't get it mixed, mastered for free either. So you know, with that, in a sense, I had to make sure that I did my due diligence as far as grinding and getting it done. And I guess my third thing I learned was to, I guess, accept accountability. Because right now I could blame everybody in that situation, but in real time, I'm the one that signed it. And kind of like Craig said, I feel like had I made the best of that situation, it still wouldn't have been the best situation for me. So I don't know if that's three things or not, but
No, that's good. That's a lot of things. It's definitely a lot of things. Right. So everyone knows today that the word on the street is that labels are signing artists less off of their talent and more based on their social status. And Lito, you signed your deal in 2005. That was 5 years before Instagram. So what was it that you did to get the label's attention back then instead of dancing on the gram?
He was breakdancing.
Breakdance? Okay.
Yeah, he was a breakdancer. He's a great breakdancer too.
It was different eras, different time. I think moving a lot of units hand for hand created what would have been considered, I guess, a viral buzz then, but it was more underground, as direct to consumer as you could get. We were going to Kentucky Derby, going to TSU Classics down in Atlanta, anywhere probably 3-hour radius where it was gonna be a bunch of people. We were showing up, with the music, with physical hard copies, and that was pretty much your pipeline to be heard. The internet didn't exist in its current form. There wasn't Instagram, wasn't social media, so it was less social status. At the point when my music was growing, it was faceless. We didn't have music videos on YouTube. We didn't have visuals. A few of my mixtapes didn't even have a picture of me on. Even my album Yesterday didn't, but even back then it was the music. And similarly, we started working a record. I just saw DJ C Wiz walk in. He's one of the DJs that, what's up Wiz, that helped break that record. Like we pressed vinyl and physically mailed it out to DJs, went to every club where they were playing music that we could reach and put the music in these people's hands. And by the time that I did that deal, I was on probably like 20 radio stations like in the region, just from working with independent record promoters and working the record like personally and independently. And that's back to that original point. Like if I've reached, a company in New Orleans, right, or I've reached a parent company in New York, right, or enough for them to want to invest, it's kind of like, well, we were doing something right. Maybe we should have just kept chipping away brick by brick. Not saying that it was skipping steps. I think they saw the potential in it and it was like, man, if you can get on 20 stations, we can put you on 200 stations. It was probably in theory, but it was not social media. It was not, what it is today. Where things grow a lot faster and without a lot less of the leg work. Yesterday, I mean, it's amazing to think, put my album out, you press a button or it was 11:01, and I'm like, man, someone can listen to my album in full 2,000 miles away from here or across the world in theory. And I'm like, man, once upon a time, I'd have to put a CD in your hand. So it's real far removed from, humble beginnings, even technology-wise.
Dope.
Yeah, and that grassroots guerrilla marketing, that's it's not what it. A lot of people aren't doing that nowadays. But Trip, when you signed, the internet was starting to kind of bubble and things were taking off, and that's when you you mentioned the letter to my son, and that kind of had a viral moment. Was that something that you did intentionally, like knowing that this is what is going on now, or was it just something you were like, I'm just gonna do this organically, put it out, and it took off on its own?
Well, I was already making, I guess you can call them freestyles. Nothing's a freestyle now, but I was already doing the freestyle videos. That one just happened to be one of the ones I did, and like I said a second ago, music's always been therapy for me. So when I did that particular song, I ain't had the slightest idea that I ain't know if it would, if I would get one view, let alone the whatever it masked. But no, I ain't go in it with no aspiration. I wasn't even thinking as a rapper at that moment. At that moment, I just, it was like more so like a poem, I guess. I just had to get it off my chest. And since I was already releasing everything that I was doing, I just said, fuck it, I'll release this too. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I can get no views. I didn't have a view yesterday, so it ain't really gonna matter.
Right.
But it in real time it picked up like 2 years later, well, maybe a year later. So, when it I had already done it and moved on. And then, it caught fire. And when that happened, it kind of changed the trajectory for me. But up until then, I really didn't know the true power of the internet. It went from, me not being able to go, people knew me in my neighborhood to, it started to bleed out and be other cities. And, at some point, there's people in Singapore listening. So,
All right,
dope, man. And you that also helped you get the XXL freshman cover, right?
Yeah, it did. That and Vanessa, she was like the editor in chief of
shout out to Vanessa.
XXL at that moment. I don't know if she still is right now, but she pressed hard for it. She was like, it was something about the music that grabbed her, and she went strong for me to be a part of it.
Dope, absolutely. So, both you guys, y'all put in a lot of work, obviously to get signed by major labels. Y'all fulfill those obligations of those deals and now leading successful independent careers on your own. So for all the aspiring artists out there who may not necessarily have $100,000 to drop in their marketing budget, do you feel that a bad deal is better than no deal? Because some might say you guys leverage your situation to where you are now. So do you feel a bad deal is better than no deal?
I mean, the idea of something being a good or a bad deal is so relative, it's so subjective. So what I might call a good or bad deal may work for you. Like the same thing that Trip said, I know he acknowledged, like, I do it all over again. I think it's so many variables, like, because if you don't have the budget to market your music or to put into, the product at large, and somebody's willing to front that or invest that may be the best thing for you. Now, I mean, depending on what the termage is, that's where I guess it gets to be good or bad, but it's one of those things. Sometimes you have to apply, would I rather have 100% of little or nothing, or would I rather have 50% or whatever percentage of a larger, stake? And I think it's more about, like, figuring out what your goals are, what you're trying to get out of whatever deal that you're doing, and kind of checklist that. And I mean, it's because it's never any promise. Like the same thing, like accepting, like, well, I accepted this, or I signed up for this, so I gotta kind of take what comes with it. I'm not, even as an independent, I'm not so much an advocate of like, oh, don't sign, don't do this. I just know for myself, some of what I leveraged or leveraged against or sacrificed by doing certain types of partnerships would probably limit me for my goals for myself. So I may not choose a certain type of deal because the control aspect is so like important to me personally. But that may be worth, giving up some of that, to fast forward what you got going, So I'm not the like don't sign kind of person or don't do a deal. Like I say, go for what works for you. So it's not like bad deal versus no deal. I don't think I would advocate doing a bad deal, but it's like, what's a bad deal? If you don't have any money today and somebody gives you a lot of money tomorrow, that might be your end game. You know what I'm saying?
Right. The check might be what you was in it for.
And you know, if it could put you and yours in a better situation, who would I be or who would anybody be to say that it's bad? You know.
Right.
But
I would say, I mean, I agree with him. You know, that's kind of relative. I don't know what you need. I don't know what you're looking for, so I couldn't tell you what you should or shouldn't grab. Only you would know. But I would say that no matter what you're doing, you got to have a clear understanding of it. I mean, like you said, you know, if you're going in and you know, you're looking at it like this shit ain't gonna pan out, but they're gonna give me X amount of dollars, then, you know, you can't be surprised when you lose ownership of certain shit, or, you know, when shit don't really go your way. Or if you in it and you feeling like, you know, independent wise, you know, if you chose the independent route, then you gotta understand that this shit does not happen overnight. Neither avenue happens overnight. But if you're doing it independent, then what independence means is that everything's on you. Now, whether you can find, you know, staff and delegate that, you know, again, that's on you. Some people go at this shit. We spend a lot of time doing everything ourselves. And from that, you know, we learn that we meet people. And, you know, from that, we learn how to build the organization, so to speak. But that's not something, you know, you didn't wake up knowing that. You kind of got to get to that. So if you're picking an independent route, you got to understand that everything's on you. You don't really get, you know, you never hear us complain about being independent artists because we get it. And, you know, I think if you got kids, then independence is easier than it sounds. But at the same token, it's harder than it looks, if that make any sense. And, you know, as far as signing to a major, that's a whole nother world. So, like he said, I would say the same. You know, if you got to kind of know what you want and what you plan to get out of it, only then do you know if it's worth it. I say, in the sense of a bad deal, I would say a bad deal would be you going against your own gut, in a sense. You know, if you know what you're going at don't benefit you in no shape, form, or fashion, or, you know, I would say a bad deal would be doing it for the wrong reasons, if anything. Like, you know, I'm signing this because, you know, all my guys is, you know, I'm gonna disappoint them if I don't, kind of shit. But other than that, I really couldn't say, you know, if your shit's a good situation or a bad one or not.
I just add, because I know you kind of referenced it against aspiring artists, you know, speaking to them directly. I believe in today's landscape of the music business or industry, there's way more resources and way more tools and information out there than it ever was before. So my humble advice would be to, like, A and B whatever you might be offered versus what access you might have to some of those same outlets. Because for every company that may want to give you some money, or you can put your music out through them, all the tools are out there to do it yourself. And you know, it may be a faster track, they may be able to scale up what you're doing, but more than ever, like, once upon a time we were talking about, like, guerrilla marketing, hand for hand, our first efforts at, like, this intermediation, I believe, was like, we didn't really know anything other than pressing up a CD and trying to get it into your hands. I didn't really have the avenues to distribute music. You know, I think I did a project with Selecto Hits in 2004. And I mean, they were based in Memphis. It was going 200 miles west. But that was, you know, I was a year in, and tens of thousands of physical CDs just, you know, now, like, you can type in a Google search how to put your music out or how to, you know, make a video. Like, there are resources and there's a lot of, like, do-it-yourself tools out there. So I would only, like, humbly advise, before you get into anything, figure out how necessary it is, because, you know, what the trade off of it is. Like,
Yeah. So, and this is the thing is you kind of spoke on it a little bit, but transitioning from having a machine behind you, right, and putting money into you and putting you on platforms and stuff like that, and then you have this momentum and this traction. Like, what did you guys do, and how did you pivot to continuously, take advantage or keep your momentum going at that time and make sure you didn't lose any traction and capitalize off of that whole situation?
I remember like my last days kind of, I guess, pivoting from dealing with a major label to being like full scale, fully independent. We were like constantly trying to go to radio, trying to, crack the matrix of a hit record, if you will. And our last few attempts at it, the budgets for the budgets to go to radio, like just on a practical level, they didn't make sense to me. Like the amounts of money that were gonna be, seeded into promoting a song at radio, I could only think like, man, for that much money, I could do this. Like it was it was probably around the time the Trip was about to break through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, all the music that I'm getting hip to are YouTube videos that I could shoot on a Canon 7D.
Mm-hmm.
It's not we don't need 3 tour buses. And like, cause with my situation, I probably had to get a record up to a certain number of spins before they release a budget to shoot a video to it. And I'm like, man, I just heard about this kid Wiz Khalifa, and he just got a cameraman following him around. It's just like his lifestyle. It's, and I was like, man, before we go to radio and try another 5-figure budget at getting this shot in the dark record to work, I'm like, man, I had 3 songs on my last mixtape that I performed in my shows. And I'm like, I could buy a camera, pay my guy to shoot, a run and gun or make sure video for it. And I know there's people that it would appeal to. So it was kind of just reformatting. Like those standards probably works for their business model. But I understood like getting a step ahead of it. Like I said, I was getting that same time frame. It was like, man, it was the Big Crits and Wizzes that were like in their earlier stages. And I'm like, man, I'm watching these guys like get this momentum and more or less, honestly, like past where I was or what I was doing. But I was, I was getting hip to it in real time. And I was like, man, I could just kind of go that route of trying to appeal to people rather than this super like standard way of doing it. So one of the things I took from it was like, keep the work ethic, keep applying pressure. But, I could have 10 chances of making something work to the one based on how the money's going out. And that for me was like the light bulb of like, man, I should be controlling my own budgets because they gonna charge me $50,000 for working this record. And I think I for sure can do more with this, go further with this $50,000, or at least I know I can go make the $50,000 back. Because if it don't work at radio, like they're gonna be reluctant to release anything else, versus, it also created jobs and opportunities for people around me and, probably kept me more inspired because a few of those records, when they crash out and they duds, it's like, now I'm not even believing in myself as an artist. Like, we put all of this into this, a budget included. And I'm like, damn, and I'm just still where I was before we put that record out versus.
I think for me, what helped me move it, I sat with all the people in the building that people didn't think was important, or at least artists didn't think were important. And, from sitting with them people, I learned about, the shit that don't happen in the studio. Because, in a lot of deals, that's pretty much how it go. You're an artist, you sign whatever, and then you think you just record. You write music and record, and that's as far as your responsibility goes. And, I sat with the marketing, and it was at that point in time, they had like a separate department for like Apple. Excuse me, later on you went, we ended up with like Spotify and fucking Tidal and all that, it amassed. But at that point in time, it was just Apple. So, I sat and I spent, it was just iTunes. So I sat and spent a lot of time with the guys from iTunes and just trying to understand kind of I guess the importance of streaming before we made it to streaming, if that make any sense. You know, when they were saying it then, it sounded crazy. You know, it didn't make any sense, and you know, it's kind of like a divide. They had like, you know, it's a few people in this department say, you know, streaming ain't gonna happen. Then it's a few saying, you know, it's the way of the future. It's gonna take over, and you know, from sitting with them and soaking that up, because I had no dog in the fight. I didn't know what the fuck streaming was. So, you know, I sat with them and I learned as much as I could learn from it. So, you know, when the time came for me to be my own guy, that was like one of the main drives. I understood that in a minute, you know, shit's for the shift. And I know this from insider trading, so to speak. So, you know, I was kind of gearing up for that. And same way like Craig was saying, when it came to the financing of it, I knew that as an independent artist, I can believe and be devoted into my music no matter what. So, you know, in my head, I've never made a song that failed, because if it reached one person outside of the studio, that was success for me. Even now, like, you know, I got 11 tapes and I don't know what the numbers are. I have no idea. You can, you know, even when we do Step Brother shit, the numbers, like, that's important, of course, you know, but at the same token, I don't ever want to go at it trying to compete with, you know, something else that was successful. I think that kind of take away from what I'm doing. And I don't really want, I got enough pressure, you know, from my real life. I don't need that pressure on top of my shit too. So, you know, when it comes to the numbers, I never really focus on that, because that ain't success to me. You know, again, you know, for me, it's people out here that you know, that related to something I wrote down and said out loud, and you know, that's, you know, the fruits of my labor for me.
All right,
Dope. So Trip, I know you talked about it just a second ago, but you dropped 11 projects this year thus far.
11.
You got a couple weeks left. You know,
Right.
So
that's like saying we're the 12th one. A couple weeks left.
right, but
Count down.
You're older.
it's coming.
absolutely. But that's a lot of music. So, what was the thought process about dropping so much material in such a short time frame? And did this work for you? Did it achieve the desired results you were looking for?
I had no expectations. Man, in real time, like December, a set, and you know, somebody asked me about what do I do when I have writer's block, and I've never had writer's block. Craig's experienced writer's block. I don't know. I think the way I look at it is different. Like, I don't feel like I don't sit down and say, man, I gotta write a song. I don't give a fuck if we do, we don't. And as a matter of fact, when we first started working early on, that was like one of the things I want to say. You know, he almost had to learn that about me. Like, you know, at no point is the creative process a job for me. If we gotta grind this shit out to get a song, then this ain't a song. It's work, and I ain't come here to do that. So, you know, when it came to the music this year, like in December, I sat down and I'm going through my hard drive and I got all this music, and for me, my music be, you know, it's direct, you know, it's shit, it's my real life. So a lot of the records, even though, you know, I get it to the consumer, it's not old music, because, you know, they've never heard it. But for me, it is, because, you know, like I said, my life is in it. So, you know, certain records might have mentioned turning 28. Shit, I'm 38 now. So, you know, I put this record out, and for a person, I always look at it like it's a first impression for somebody. So somebody's gonna listen to this, and to them, I just lied about being 28. You know, I ain't been 28 in 10 years. And then on top of that, you know, I'm sitting and I'm listening, and I'm like, man, I got all this music. It's on the hard drive. You know, there was a point in time for rappers, it was like a accolade to say, man, I got 100 songs. And, you know, I'm sitting, I'm like, yeah, okay, I got 100 songs. And, you know, there's no real way for me to put these 100 songs out unless I'm going to pull a Chris Brown. And I'm like, man, so, you know, what the fuck am I really doing this for? I got 100 songs on the hard drive. And, you know, they just sitting there. So I said from that moment forward that everything I record is going to get released. And shit, January hit and I did exactly that. Like the 100 songs I'm mentioning are still on the hard drive. I treated it like I had no records. I started recording in January. Everything I recorded in January, what's in January to Gotham City. Everything I recorded in January went to Gotham City. Same for February. Same for shit every month that preceded. I don't think that's preceded. Either way, every month after that, whatever I recorded in that month, that's what I released. And as far as the results, I would say it was successful because at this point in time, I think it's maybe like 100-something songs. So for me, what that says is, of course, no matter what I'm doing, or no matter what anybody's doing, you're gonna have people that discredit it. Like this throughout this whole shit. I keep saying so and so did it first, or so and so did it yesterday, and none of that shit really registers to me because. If you bought a car today and I buy a car tomorrow, I'm not going to say, oh, well, my car ain't shit because you had a car before me. I don't give a fuck if you got a car or not. I got one now. So that's how I look at the music. So, when I see somebody didn't like something, and for the most part, if you see me comment on the internet, I mostly comment to negative comments, but I don't comment negatively. Like, you expect me, they think that they got under my skin. People, like yesterday I read some dude was like, man, I don't know what the hype's about. Watch him and, it's he was complaining about me not being animated. I was like, everything ain't for everybody. But with 100-something songs, man, and in real time, I feel like if you listen to my music, it's because you relate. So with 100 records this year, if you don't like any of the records, then you don't relate to any of the records. And in my head, you just not a real person if you don't relate to anything. And but that's how I look at it. So with 100 records, if it could be somebody in here that only like one record, I appreciate it. I value that because in real time, that means I ain't the only one going through whatever record that is that you feel near and dear to. That let me know I ain't the only one going through it, and that's my that's my success. That's the only expectation I got is to make sure that I can share it, because nobody knew that men were fighting for their children until my son, apparently. So I felt like if I didn't do that, then it wouldn't have opened up the I don't know, I guess the vulnerability of men that deal with the same thing. And that go for a lot of our music. Like we can go and perform and we can do all our super hip hop records, and people want to hear the fucking Caesar and Brutus. There's no hook in that. It's just real life. And once we grasp that concept that our real lives are interesting enough, then everything else just happens how it happens.
Dope. So, Lito, you actually did the opposite, right? You were quiet for like 3 years, took some time off, and today everyone says
he was writing out my shit.
There you go. Well, everyone says that if you're not, today it's all about being consistent. You got to keep dropping, spike that algorithm. So, do you feel taking that time off did it hurt your momentum, or do you feel like it helped you in the long run?
I didn't consider it either way during the time off or the time away from releasing music. Here and now, I believe in something I learned in a business course a long time ago, my freshman year of college, that scarcity increases value. Releasing so much music throughout my career, I think there's some value to being missed. Because in the time between my last project or even the last 5 years where I kind of tapered off from releasing as much music, the only thing I really consistently heard is like, when you drop and we want to hear more, and even as like personally, I may not have been in the headspace for it, I could see there was a relative demand for it, or so I don't believe it put me in in a worse space in terms of appeal or demand or any of that. But it was just a almost necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's as an artist, what would we be without the experience?
Mm.
The same thing I mentioned, like making a club record, or that's how I was living.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to the club. I was a party animal. I was a college student. That was my reality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like my reality looks a lot different than that.
Mhm.
And as things were changing around me in my personal life and otherwise, I had to take a moment to accept that, embrace it, enjoy it, conform to it. And it made it where the same thing that Craig said, it almost felt like going in and making records and was gonna be like work versus,
Force,
it was because I couldn't I did a paternity leave album in 2020, summer 2020, and I touched on, some of what my life looked like as a new parent and otherwise. There was 3 or 4 records that were directly like on brand or on theme for that. But coming out of doing that record, I didn't feel like I could make a paternity leave too, or make this album's entirely about fatherhood or that part of my journey or that part of my story, because it's redundant. Like obviously I'm still doing that, but I even titled it accordingly, knowing that I kind of, this rap stuff is, the music stuff is gonna be secondary to that. That's just what it is. But in the process, there were other things that kind of prolonged that absence, if you will. But I'm a firm believer in not talking unless I got something to say. Like,
That's real.
and speak when spoken to. I don't do a lot of interview pieces and things like that, because a lot of times I feel like I'm gonna be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Or you guys will ask some interesting questions, some insightful things
We
been
appreciate
touched
that.
on. But overall, that's where I was, and just there were other things, like I said, that extended the absence. But I think things happen in perfect order, or accordingly timed. So here we are now. But to paraphrase, I don't think, if anything, in its own way, I think it improved things, because there's some like purity to where I am now as an artist.
Yeah.
Versus I could have put an album out a year ago and I would have been scrambling to just put material together, because I didn't have 100 songs, or even, Quiet as Kept, like Craig encouraged me as he heard some of the music that I was making in between. He was like, "Man, you gotta put that up." I'm like, "What's wrong with it?" Like, I'm like, "Oh, it's not done." He's like, "Nah, you being too critical of yourself. Like, that's good as if somebody else will appreciate that." You know what I'm saying? And but yeah, I would have been scrambling versus like, okay, this is where I am and this is what I want to present to the world.
Okay. So one of the things that people really love about both you guys and myself as well is how vulnerable you allow yourselves to be in the music. Trip, listening to all your projects, the one thing that was recorded in all 11 projects was the phrase, "Long live Piff." And in the song "Ignorance is Bliss," you said it took every dollar that you had to put Piff in the ground, and then you went broke trying to help your family out, and then you said never again. How did you overcome that, and what did you learn from that whole situation about yourself as well as other people?
I don't know.
And this is something we know that it's difficult to talk about, but it's something that we all go through, that we all deal with, man. And it's hard to heal. We have to, speak on it, because it can really hurt us mentally. It can hurt our mental health. So we're all here to support each other. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, if you don't want to talk about it, let's not talk about it.
No, you good. Fuck that. Man, look. I don't know. I ain't quite coping with losing Piff. That's a work in progress. Man, like I said a second ago, I'm more successful now than I ever been in my life, and he not present to experience it with me. So,
Man.
Either way, man. As far as like, shit, as far as like ignorance is bliss, man. It's I've experienced a lot of highs and lows, and you know, you seem to have more company on your highs than your lows. And yeah, I don't know. I think losing my brother kind of put shit in a different kind of perspective. I couldn't quite give people the benefit of the doubt no more. Like shit hurts. It was hurting then. It hurts now. So you know, I don't know. I kind of, you know, I guess for once in my life, I just said, fuck it, man. I put how I felt first. That's, you know, I get it. Me helping you does something for you, but it does something for me as well. You know, it takes from me. And, you know, I guess I just reached that point, man. I'm like, fuck it. If you not there when I need you, then fuck you. You know, I stopped looking at it like maybe you can't, and, you know, I start looking at it like you won't. And, you know, in real time, the people around me can't really help me financially. So I've never expected a person to be able to return that favor in a sense. You know, if I helped you with whatever, and, you know, I got real family in the audience to tell you, you know, I don't like, you know, I don't document favors, man. I ain't into that. You don't owe me shit. You know, if you needed it and I could help you, then I help you. And, you know, I started paying attention to people when I couldn't help them. And, you know, that shit, you know, that's a real light bulb. And you keep turning that motherfucker off, eventually it's going to drain you. And that's what happened, man. I reached a point like, man, fuck it. I can't do this. I can't keep making sure you straight. And who the fuck's going to make sure I'm straight? You know, I'm going through it. I'm dealing with shit. And in that moment, like I said, I went broke in 2020. And, you know, I'm telling people I can't do it. And, you know, it's snapping. You know, you see a whole nother kind of person. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde now. And, you know, I don't think I would have been able to see it for what it was if I wasn't going through, you know, what I was going through. And, you know, and even with that, like I said, man, look, I've been through a lot, and like, I don't know, at some point, man, I just couldn't give people the benefit of the doubt. And I got 8 kids in real time. So, you know, if what we doing don't support that, then fuck you. So,
oh man, it's real.
I appreciate that record, bro.
Yeah, round of applause, man, because we know that's very difficult to talk about, man. But we appreciate you, you know, touching on that a little bit, man. And you know, speaking of being vulnerable, Lito, you recently opened up and your letter to whom it may concern, where you address the reason why you were gone, and you spoke on childhood trauma, baby mama drama, the loss of young Dolph. And one thing that really stuck out to us was you said, "I no longer desire to be a rapper," right? And you just dropped a project yesterday. You have a concert tonight. So are you in a space now where you don't love hip hop like you once did, or is it something where it's kind of turned into a job now?
It's been a job, but I don't have the same love that I once had for it, for sure. I spoke on, you know, that the overwhelming or immediacy of that feeling of like not wanting to do this anymore, like coming with the death of young Dolph. It just, I don't know, it hit home in a very different way. I remember when Tupac passed away, I was in 6th grade, I believe, 7th grade. I remember quite a few other artists. I remember where I was when I got that news of various artists that were probably like on my playlist, people I was listening to. So a few artists that I met, even Bankroll Fresh, namely, and it was a very, 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 it was a very different feeling with Dolph. We at that point been working together for 10 years. We done 10 plus records, numerous shows, you know, rode in the car together, broke bread, you know, otherwise, like, and I watched him become a superstar. And like every step of the way, I was always like, as much fan, supporter, like, you know, I was living vicariously through him on a lot of levels, you know. And the way it happened, the gravity of it, I had a 2-year-old, maybe she just turned 3 at the house, you know, outside of the artistry, like, you know, he was a father. And I couldn't really come to grips with like it hit so close to home of like, man, this, you know, I think I've always been conscious or aware like the inherent dangers of just environmentally or even like this culture of hip hop. You know, it's like I said, there's been tens of rappers that have lost their lives, unfortunately, and due to violence and otherwise. So it's like ever present. But that just like, I was just like, man, to watch somebody like take it from, you know, more or less nothing to where he took it, and I'm like, what am I aspiring to be?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, is that the end all be all? Is that the peak of it? For, you know, and I'm just like, man, what is any of this worth? And even snapping out of that way, that perspective of it, like at some point I think I recorded that verse. It's a verse on my album that's directly like about and dedicated to him. It's the last verse on the record, Last Time, with Robin Right Now. I recorded that verse strangely, cosmically, on like the 2-year anniversary, the 2nd year anniversary of him passing. Just that, I mean, I had started the song, but I actually finished the verse on that day. And I think somewhere it kind of hit me that like, regardless how any of this plays out, like, what am I to not share or exercise or use my gift? You know, because even considering I wouldn't have known, bro, were it not for this. You know, so I wouldn't know Trip if it weren't for this. I wouldn't know the majority of you guys. But I mean, there's a few people I knew in this room prior to rapping, but you know, largely like I got all this equity into this, and I changed my perspective to like, man, I don't want to be a waste of you know, talent or everything I've sold into it. Like, I can't just consider the worst case scenario of it. The best case scenario, the other side of it, is I know that, like, even for him, I know there's things that he put out there that people are still benefiting from. You know what I'm saying? Be it the music, the energy, the, you know, inspiration. And so I just had to kind of like change my own thinking about it. But like in truth, like, it was such a like it was the impact of it, the gravity of it was just, it was like, man, I don't care about this. You know what I'm saying? But my love for it changed, and you know, once upon a time I wanted to be regarded as the best rapper in the world. You know, it was bars on bars. I think Trip can attest to it with even his own journey. Like, it's punchlines on punchlines. It was, you know, it was on whatever level, like, that was that. It was a passion project. It was looking at it like a sport. Even my stage name used to be All Star and otherwise. But eventually I realized that, like, I just kind of own being the best me, the best version of me, and nobody could possibly be better at that than me.
Yeah.
And so as far as the game itself, y'all mentioned like artists getting a look or getting opportunities based on social status. There's so many variables that don't have anything to do with the rapping, the lyrics, the music. So I've detached from some of that because a lot of what's out there isn't for me. I don't knock anybody for what they're doing, but it's just so different. The music I listen to is probably more so the music I came up on. Like, a few of the records on my album were, you know, I'm reworking things that are classics to me, and you know, because I know there's probably an audience that may not even be familiar with that, or where it came from. The record, where, you know, that was in part in tribute to Dolph, was like a fabulous record, and he started his first verse with a Tupac line. He started his second verse with a Biggie line. He started his third verse with a Big Pun line. Something that even in real time, even though I was fans of those three artists, it kind of flew over my head, you know, slightly, when I realized I was like, oh, this is hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And similarly, I started the first verse with, I actually started and ended each verse, like bookended each verse with, first with a Bankroll Fresh line, the second one with a Nipsey Hussle line, the third one with Young Dolph lyrics. And you know, reworked the hook similar to Lil Mo with Robin. And so I'm still in love with like the hyper creative side of hip hop and the expressive element of it. I'm not into the spectacle of it. And it's a lot of things that I can admit, even in my younger years, that early in my career, that things that I probably glorified or things that, you know, I immerse myself in, you know, culturally or on a life level that I think so differently about, or my perspective on it has changed so much that I'm like, I can some of my old stuff I listen to and I cringe like, damn, like I understand where I was, but I'm like, why would I know the influence too. Like, I wouldn't want to plant that seed in somebody else's head as this is the way to be. You know, I might have made those choices, might have been what I was doing, but I know I probably made some kid think this is cool. Yeah. Or this is what he should be doing. And I'm like, nah, absolutely not. I look at myself as a damn fool. For, you know, for that being how I woke up in the morning or how I went to sleep. Or maybe I didn't give you the whole story or how I got there or why it was like that. And you know, so, but I, like in large part, there's certain pockets, certain elements of the hip hop culture that taking it up through there and glorify, glamorize, commercialize a lot of that stuff even more. And I'm like, I ain't into that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I still get chills and somebody can rap real good. You know what I'm saying? and I love that side of it. And I do still enjoy creating, but it did take getting over a hump to even like want to do that again or more.
Dope. So me and Capo, we were discussing some of the music, and you know, one thing that we both agree on is you guys are always speaking on stuff that everyday people can relate to. You know, some stuff that's uncomfortable to talk about, like mental health, financial hardships, the challenges of fatherhood, stuff that regular people go through. You know, Trip, you got 11 projects, all full with depth and substance. Which one means the most to you and why? Just this year's projects.
Well, I don't know. I guess it would be the Long Live Piff project from June.
Okay.
But that's because, man, when I first started rapping, like I said, you know, it was crisscross. And me and my brother was a year older than me. So, and, you know, in my family, we was crisscross. Family gatherings, they call us in the room, you know, in the living room, we got to do the dance and the song and all that kind of shit. And at some point, you know, we started creating our own music. And it was fun then, of course. But I think when we stopped being able to just do it for fun, we kind of went two different directions. And I always felt like Piff was, you know, I always felt like he was talented enough to do it. It just, you know, I don't know, like Piff was the person that showed me that without the ambition, you know, nothing happens. And I don't know, like if, you know, if any of you ever seen him on the stage, like he's always full of energy. He's out, you know, like he had everything but the hunger to you know, to truly dedicate himself to it. So you know, all along the way, I would try to help. I would try to, you know, get him in tune. And at first, you know, we did a lot of songs together, and he just didn't believe in any of the records. And at some point, you know, I sit with him. I'm like, you know, what's going on? Why, you know, we could put some of this music out. And he's like, man, you killed me on every song. And I'm like, man, you looking at it the wrong way. And like, you know, at some point I realized that, like, you know, when we did a record, like he put me on a pedestal. So when we would do the record, he couldn't give it his all. He, you know, he kind of shorted himself. So, you know, fast forward, when he passed, you know, I'm at my studio. It was extremely hard to work in my studio because Piff spent a lot of time there. So the you know, I don't know, like, you know, it's like he was in the walls or something. Essence. But either way, you know, I sat and I'm trying to clean up my hard. I'm trying to clean up the hard drive on the computer because it's crashing. And it's crashing because these niggas don't use external hard drives. They save everything on the desktop. So either way, you know, I'm trying to clean it up, and I'm like, shit, man. I keep having, you know, it's like a shitload of Piff files, and this nigga said it was. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know where this shit was at. Like, you could pull up a session, you couldn't find vocals. Like, you know, shit was everywhere. But either way, you know, I put everything on the hard drive. I took it to my producer Chef, and I told him, you know, Let's build some records around it. And that's the most special project to me because I always wanted the public to be able to hear his music. And with that particular tape, every one of those records were his solo, I couldn't use any of the beats he used because I didn't know where they came from. And if you know Piff, like we know Piff, he probably stole most of those beats. But I ain't want to put no tape out and then have to deal with that.
Right.
So I'm like, fuck it, we got to build around it. And real shit, he know what I'm talking about. Look, man, Piff was a different kind of person. You just would have had to know him, man. If you know, you know. But with those records though, those records were so like those records were the essence of his music or of his talent because none of those records were records he had to compete with me on. Mm-hmm. He just went in and did whatever he felt like doing, and to me that's that's the true art of it. Mm-hmm. So when I sat and I heard the music for once, I followed his lead. Mm-hmm. And that's when, like, if you listen to that tape, there's only one song on that tape where you hear me. You don't hear me first, but it's only one song on the tape with my verses first. Everything else, I let him lead because in real life, that was I felt like that was the thing that prevented him from going. It's because in that space, he felt like hey man, shit, my brother's Don Trip. When somebody hear me, they gonna say, well, shit, he ain't as hard as Trip. And no matter how much I would tell him that his music had a life of its own, I couldn't convince him of such. So, me being able to do that project, that was my my trophy to him. If my award for him. Like, man, shit didn't pan out the way we would have wanted it to. But I felt like if the world could hear it, then it could live forever. And at the same token, like it was that's just a sore spot for my whole family. And up until then, if for us, if we wanted to hear Piff music, we had to go in the studio. And like I said, that shit was all over the place. This nigga didn't believe in mixing or mastering or nothing. Some of them shits, I think he had the fucking mic turned the wrong way or something. Like real shit. But either way, I wanted my family to be able to have something that was that was present. Like, you don't gotta go to the studio to feel his presence. And then you got this record, again, we in the era where everything's in your phone now, so that's perfect. So it's always with you. So, you get in that moment and, sometimes crying is healthy. Sometimes you need it. So, when you're in that space and, you miss them, you get to, for my family, we get to pull our phones out and listen to those records. We might play them shits all together. It might be a family gathering and we, play some of those records. And I just wanted to be able to create that something that we can hold on to, almost like a fucking biopic, so to speak.
Dope. Let's go.
Yeah, real talk. And man, real quick, as you was talking about his energy, man, and I got a story real quick. We were on tour, and I remember Piff used to come. I was backstage on the first show, and I think all of a sudden I heard this noise. It sounded like someone was jackhammering the stage. And so I came running out. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And it was Piff. Boom, boom.
Man,
boom.
yeah, he would, man. Listen.
And he did that every show for the whole tour. But as soon as he did it,
whole hour nonstop, he was stumping. But man, the energy never, like, he always had the energy.
Yes.
And like, man, my relationship with my brother was fucking, I don't know how to explain it. Like, Piff was my arch nemesis, and he was my greatest sidekick all at the same time. Like, a lot of the shows, man, I don't know how. I ain't never been in the business of like sugarcoat shit. So it is what it is. Again, if you know Piff, then you know how Piff was. But that nigga was like a lit firecracker at all times, and we could have an argument, before we get to the show or backstage. Like, he can firsthand and. Piff ain't one of them. Like, I'm the kind of person, if I got a problem with you, I'll pull you to the side not Piff. So we might have a incident backstage. We don't get physical. At some point in life, we learn that the last thing we want to do is truly hurt each other.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 17 or 18, we stopped having physical altercations, but we never stopped having verbal altercations. So we might have a falling out backstage, and somebody come bring us the mics. When they bring us the mics, he coming out here.
Yeah.
And you ain't gonna even, no one else would even know we had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And when the show was over, we still got that problem. Shit go right back to us. So we hand the mics back, we go back, fuck you, nigga. It just was what it was. But like I said, Piff had the energy at all times. Man, we did one show. I know this ain't got shit to do with shit, but we did one show and Piff was pissed because he left his shoes at the last city. And I'm like, nigga, my shoes are on my feet. I don't know how. I can't relate to this issue. This isn't anything that got anything to do with me.
Yeah.
So, he's snapping, man. He mad at everybody. Nobody remembered to get his shoes. I'm like, man, you crazy. We get to, I'm wondering this whole time, like, what the fuck are on your feet if you don't have your shoes on? He got on, we call them the Craigs, because they the fucking house shoes. Right. Yeah, the corduroy slippers.
The chacletas.
He got on these shits. So I'm like, man, you put those on and they so comfortable that you forgot your tennis shoes?
Yes.
So he pissed the whole day. Sound check, he pissed. We get, the show was on. I want to say it was on the Step Brothers tour.
Absolutely.
Man, we come out and he was still stomping the fucking hole in the stage. And
the house shoe.
we stopped. We like, man, and after the show, he was like, man, my feet hurt like a motherfucker. Well, either way, that was my point though with Piff, man. Like, I don't know what it was, man, but he always had the energy, and that. So doing that project, I know that's two separate questions, but doing that project, well, you didn't actually ask a question. But either way, that's why doing that project was special. Though I wanted to share that, and that was like I said, for once I had to follow his lead. It ain't like I could say, hey, you got to go in there and re-record that.
Yeah.
Shit, how? So, I had to make do with it. But yeah, man.
I thought you were going to answer that one with like how you said, I got a lot of kids, but they're all my favorite. I thought that's what you was going to come out
well,
with.
In a sense they are, but not that one. Yeah, that tape was different,
For sure.
For like I said, for everything else, man, I just, like right now, the tape is supposed to drop on the 22nd. I got one song. So however many records I got, when it's time to turn it in, that's what the fuck you're gonna get. You can say it's not enough. I ain't gonna give a shit.
Yeah.
In real time, man, I watched Currency put a tape out, and everybody was like, man, the Currency album's out. I'm like, oh, okay. I checked it. It was 3 songs. I said,
album?
Right. I said, fucking 3 songs. Nobody anywhere else on the internet said this is only 3 songs.
Yeah.
So when I seen that, I said, all right, I don't want to hear that shit. So again, on the 22nd, if you got 8 records, I don't believe in 3 records.
Yeah.
I got to at least give you 8. But in real time, man, I'm moving around a lot. And shit, next week I take my kids to Disney World. I don't know if y'all ever took kids to Disney World. Right. It ain't fun for nobody but people wearing Mickey Mouse ears, man.
That's real.
Right. That's work. Real. That's work. Either way, I'm just saying, whatever you get on the 22nd, and you're gonna get whatever I got. I ain't in the business of like forcing it. I ain't gonna go and say, oh man, I promised the 22nd, so I gotta give you. I gotta go in this the 100 songs I got from fucking 20 years ago. You're going to get whatever I got, and, I hope you enjoy it.
All right.
I got one for you.
Oh, that's great. See, that's a surprise.
I got 2.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
Craig was on sabbatical. It was a little tough to get him. One, it was tough to get him in the zone. And 2, I was on like super crunch time deadline. I don't believe in deadlines, so it kind of make everything a little more complicated, especially for my distributor. So, they'd be like, man, you want to put the album out in, 3 weeks? We need it 3 weeks early. I'm like, you can't get it 3 weeks early. They like, why? I'm like, it don't fucking exist. You can't. Right. So, I would hit Craig and I'm like, hey, turning the tape in 2 days. He like, what the fuck? I got my daughter and she been up for fucking 70 hours. I can't go do a record. And I respect it because I live in that same world. So for him to say he got 2 records, y'all got to know I'm for the fucking handcuff him to the mic stand before you get them 2 records.
Word. Well, speaking of the records, Lito, you poured your heart out in this new project, man. And you gave us a look into a lot of the personal issues, and it's been a while since you dropped. So why now? Why come back with this project?
Like I said, it's, perfect timing. Why not now? It's kind of how I looked at it. Like escaping some of the headspace that I was in. It's like, okay, I tapped into the therapeutic aspects of it all. Part of the time it hinged on a conversation that Craig and I had a few months ago. We were talking about, I called him, this is very candid, I called him maybe September, because I think he was an 8 project saying if I remember, somewhere September, October. And I asked, I was like, man, how, because I knew he was starting from scratch every month.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, how are you able to tap into this like on cue? On schedule, because like I said, I've released a lot of music in a short amount of time, but like my cousin's over in the crowd, like we used to be at his house and I might record 10 songs in a day some days, and I might go a week or 2 without recording, I might come back, record 10 more, I might go to this studio, record 4 more. It's just constantly creating. But I'm like, it was never like, all right, I gotta drop on the 15th for this month and I gotta come with 10 more at this time. I would just look up and have enough music and didn't want to sit on it. But I called Craig and was like, man, what are you tapping into to be able to do this like on command? I was like, 'cause at that moment, short of like the features he might call me for, and I just like kind of felt like I owed that to him due to our, our bond, our brotherhood in music, and knowing what, I wanted to be a part of his push, his campaign was, it's been like that for 12 years running. Mm-hmm. When I asked, he was like, that's when we had the conversation about me overthinking or being, he was like, man, we're both guilty of being our own worst critics. He said that I was worse than him in that regard. He was like, man, the stuff you played, like, it's perfect. You just not looking at it like that. And he was like, man, if you, this conversation, and this will, maybe be telling, he was like, man, if you wrote a song about having writer's block, people would appreciate it. That would be like, there's somebody out there that would be like a gem to them. Mm-hmm. And when he said it, like naturally as an artist, like I was like, hit it like the ding, it was like a light bulb. I was like, oh shit, okay. That's a interesting sound concept. He was like, man, if you just talked about your inability to, the conversation we have, and he was like, man, that's just a peek inside, like, your own brain. He's like, you'd be surprised. And I was like, damn. As he was talking, I probably didn't hear the next thing he was saying, because I was like, man, I'm gonna, what if I took, like, I was like, sometimes I might write 3 or 4 bars and just scrap it. Or, write something. And he was like, I was like, what if I took that and only rap 3, 4 bars at a time? I was like, man, I'm gonna have like the pen scratching out and balling up the paper. He was like, oh yeah, that'd be dope. And we got off the phone, and that became the intro to my album. Yep. A record called Writer's Block. Mm-hmm. And I think that conversation, sparked something creatively. Mm-hmm. The majority of my album was probably written on the back of certain, moments, conversations, memories, just thoughts. I spent a lot of time like jogging and hiking and time with myself, and like the random ideas that are popping in my head, just moving on them. Mm-hmm. So it was more like a why not now. This is maybe the 7th or 8th project I released on my birthday. Mm. So I think for my audience that have wrote it out with me or chose to celebrate me throughout my journey, is me giving or sharing a gift, you know what I'm saying? And it's a holiday of sorts. I mean, it's the day I got here. Right. So, I mean, that played into the timing. We decided to put this concert together the day after my birthday, kind of a de facto like birthday party or celebration. So when we got the venue and got the date, I was like, shit, I guess I probably should drop an album. You know, then we had the bet early in the year of like, I think it was maybe the second and third project. I was like, you gonna do this every month for real? Like, you know, I was already impressed when he was in March and was 3 for 3. I was like, cause they were all, you know, fire too.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate that.
I was like, you gonna draw? He was like, I'm gonna draw too. I was like, well, what was happening every time he would drop a new one, cause he dropped, I think last fall or late in 2022. So when he came back in January, and then he came back in February, now like my socials are on, like, where you at? What you gonna do? Like, at this point, you know, it's going on almost 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, almost 3 years since I released a solo project. So I'm like, I can't even post, you know, endorse his tape. I might be featured on there. I can't even, you know, share his link without all the feedback and like, yeah, we love him, but what you doing? Like, man, you tripping kind of thing. And so I hit him, I was like, man, you putting a lot of pressure on me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you gonna keep doing this, at some point I'm gonna have to drop something. I was like, I tell you what, if you do it all year, I'll drop something the end of the year. And it was kind of, you know, running joke, inside joke kind of wager. And by the time I shared that, people was like, yeah, you know. I was like, well, he only did 11, so I was waiting on number 12. Then he leaked my song, and you know,
right.
and
I had to push the button, man. I had to put. Craig was like, man, I'm gonna drop it when I turn 40 and shit. I'm like, no, we gonna go ahead and make this happen. So I had to force his hand, man. You know?
yeah, but it was a number of variables. Like I said, a personal conversation we had definitely like was a big spark and helped me turn the corner toward like completing a project and putting it together like concept wise. And like I said, that became my intro.
Yeah.
Like, cause I was like, damn, like I really am. I don't think he was being literal and telling me to make that a song. He was just like, man, if you did this, it was just, you know, speaking candidly. And I was like, damn, you might be right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
He was.
That's dope. So speaking of the internet, if everybody's got a phone or whatever, I know y'all seen the video of Andre 3000 recently making a comment about his age in hip hop and said he's got nothing to rap about at his age because he's old. What's he supposed to talk about? Getting a colonoscopy. So as you guys get older and start approaching the 4-0, do you feel like you are limited on what you can say, or do you feel like you have more to say?
what? You can go ahead, Craig.
Well, before I answer that question, I think what he was saying was, I think kind of, you know, a lot of times what we do, we leave our answers vague enough for you to like make your own interpretation of it. That's why I don't answer questions in that fashion, because I need you to understand how I'm rocking. But I think what he was trying to say was that he's done so much that, you know, he's in his 40s now, and I ain't feeling this shit. Without saying, I ain't feeling this shit. Like I said a second ago, I ain't doing this shit if I don't feel like doing this shit. And I think that's what he was saying. Like, man, you know, I don't know what exact number he said, but like, you know, in like his late 40s, like, you know, I don't want to rap about what you want me to rap about, because that's not my life. If I'm going to rap about my life, except my life right now is, unfortunately, a colonoscopy. But either way, for me, I don't know. I don't have a I'll stop right now if I don't want to do this shit. Like, you know, I know that if I stop right now, I have to. What? You know, I got a few things that's going on that ain't like, you know, publicized as far as financially. But I know if I stop right now, I have to, you know, I gotta make up for that absence of income. But other than that, I think I gave the, you know, whether it's today or it's 10 years from now, I think I've given enough of myself to this that I got the right to leave when I feel like it's time for me to leave. I think the worst thing you could do in any profession is outstay your own welcome, in a sense. You know, shit, we saw it. Shit, I'm pretty sure most of the people sitting in here are somewhere near my age. You know, we saw boxers fight well past their prime, you know, and that shit didn't, you know, that shit left, you know, damaging permanent effects, you know. And music is the same way, man. You stay at this shit too long, you know. I don't want to be putting out 7, 8 tapes and, you know, and no one paid attention to any of the shit in real time. You know, I don't look at numbers, but those numbers would be, you know, hard to ignore. You know, you look and, you know, fucking streaming check come back, I got $10. I'm just saying, when that happens, you know, I ain't gonna fault my audience. And when it happens, all right, you know, it is what it is. It's time to, you know, shake and do what I gotta do. But I say that to say, whenever the moment comes, if it comes, and when it comes, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna do what feel right for me, because you know, I look at my career like the opposite of Kobe Bryant's. Like, you know, Kobe Bryant retired and then he started being able, like, you know, he spoke on it quite a bit, but then he got to be a full-time father. So when I used to ask him how, you know, if he ever planned to come back, he would say, no, I'm done. But that's an experience that you can't purchase. And, you know, I at some point in my career, that was all, you know, that was my main focus, my children. And I kind of designed everything I do around the fact that I'm a father. Like, you know, early on when Craig didn't have kids, you know, we be trying to get a project done, and he say, hey, man, well, I'm flying to Phoenix to do so-and-so, so-and-so, and shit, we can knock out 5, 6 records there. And I tell him, nigga, I can't go to Phoenix today. Fuck is wrong with you? And, you know, at first, I'm certain that was frustrating because, you know, he wanted to be proactive and in real time. Even I don't doubt that it may have made him feel like, you know, like what we was doing came second. But in real time, it did. In real time, being with my children, that was what was most important. And since my children don't live with me, it kind of add an extra layer of responsibility. So, you know, we all see it on the internet when mamas post, single mothers say, if daddy can't do it, then that's okay. But if mama can't do it, she got to make it happen. In real time, I fall into that stigma as soon as I can't do something. I can pick my kids up every day from school, and the day I say, hey, man, well, I got to fly to Phoenix. Now, you know, I'm a deadbeat now because I can't pick my kids up from school. Like, I don't get I don't get any leeway. And with that, you know, that I kind of shaped my whole career, so to speak. I shaped it around being a father. So the way I function, everything gotta kind of be not like, you know, I don't move like with an itinerary, but it's a bit more orchestrated or organized. And, you know, like he talking about Phoenix, if he tell me today, about 2 weeks from now, we can make something happen. But he tell me today he flying to Phoenix, nigga, I'm not joining you. But that's a space that he reached once he had a child. And that's why I say, you know, my career's been the opposite of Kobe's, because, you know, this is not to take nothing from Kobe Bryant in no shape, form, or fashion. But for me, when I heard him say that, that made me feel reassured that I took it the right way. Because, you know, throughout this, you know, like right now, my youngest son he not in here with me, but he's in Nashville with me. But, you know, I that's how I structure my shit. Like, you know, no matter what, I get to be Chris. You know, we go on stage and then, you know, you get Don Trip. But after that, you know, I still got to be who I am. And, you know, that shit became like the importance of the shit. And like right now, you heard him a second ago, he was like, you know, this shit's secondary. But he telling you now that he's experienced, you know, fatherhood's not something he could live vicariously through me to experience. He had to, you're right, you got to have a child, and, you know, you got to experience that for yourself. And I would like to think that him watching, you know, shit, I want to say by the time we linked up, I had 2 kids already, and I kind of was on a streak and probably made another one every year or something like that. But I would like to think him seeing me be like, all the way in that space as a father, that helped. And I don't want to take or sound like I'm taking any credit from him as a father, because it still got to be in you. But I think that I would like to think that helped help guide in a sense. Like, he ain't have to like go in it and learn how to juggle it. If anything, he saw it firsthand. Okay, it was certain shit Trip was doing that other people may not agree with, but I understand it now. And that's how he functioned now. Like, as an artist, his daughter comes first. And I love to see it. But, as far as music, when that point comes where, where this ain't a priority no more, then we'll just take it how it go. Because in real time, them children are really all that matters. That's my number one fans, 8 of them, but those are my number one fans. Those are my biggest supporters, So if that's what I'm doing it for,
That's real.
then, when the time comes and I got nothing else to say. Like a second ago, he was like, he got records when he was younger that he cringe when he listened to them now. Not because, that's how he feel with the Spacey and play a role in it. But I'm positive that the biggest part of it is at some point he got to explain that shit to his daughter. And we said a lot of shit. We said a lot of shit. I said I would fuck Stacey Dash, and then I don't know when I said that, but I'm married now. Right, so that's something I wouldn't say right now, because if I said it right now, I had to explain that, and I don't like explaining myself. So it don't that don't really resonate for me. But like led to my son, maybe. As a matter of fact, when we had the conversation he was speaking on, in that conversation, I told him that my son had finally said something to me about him hearing the song. He was like, "Man, you basically dissed my mama." I'm like, you know what? I never looked at it in that sense. And he was like, I don't really like it. And he wouldn't look at me while he was saying it. But two things happened right there. One, I was proud that our bond reached a space where he could express that. Because I'm sure he ain't just feel like that today. So, that was one thing. And then the second thing was accountability. Like it hit. Well, today I got to address this. And, I explained to him, where my head was at in that space. And I acknowledged that I wasn't being responsible in that sense. Yeah, that's a song, that's the song that put me in the spotlight. But at the same token, certain parts of that song, I don't know, I ain't think it all the way through. Like I say a name in the song, I don't call people out their name in real time. Other than that song, I've never called a person out of their name. I called her out of her name about 100 times. So, like real shit. So, I'm sitting with him and I gotta stand on that. I teach him to stand on his actions, so I gotta stand on mine. And, I admitted to him, that was irresponsible of me, because at no point during that record did I think, oh shit, one day he's gonna hear this song. And, I'm standing there, we having this conversation, and, I asked him, look me in my face. And, I made sure he understood that he wouldn't be penalized for this conversation. He can speak as long as, of course, we keep this respectful. But either way, when he said all of that changed a lot of things. And I'm like, when I make music, I got to keep that in perspective. I can't say, hey, go shoot the club up. And my son come here and say, Dad, you wouldn't shoot no club up. Why you say that? Right. Now I got to explain why, But either way, with that being a variable in the shit, I know your question was like,
No, keep talking.
But with that being a variable in the shit, I think that become what's most important. Like, you know, again, when I'm at that age, I ain't rapping about no fucking colonoscopy. By the time I'm old enough for a colonoscopy, just like fucking 20 years ago, we have phones that take pictures and videos and all this bullshit. Technology has advanced. They better advance that shit. Yeah, they better be able to do that shit with something else. You know, either way, ain't gonna be no verses from me about such. So I feel Andre in that sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Craig, give y'all something in this in that regard.
I saw the quote. I also saw Lil Wayne kind of respond to it, and I think my stance probably somewhere in between the two, because Wayne, I don't want to say like condemned the statement, he just disagreed, and he felt like this, he lived and breathed this. Like, I heard him 17, 18 years ago, so he'll retire out when he dies out. And like, I think in his mind, he's a rapper by trade, by nature. Like, it's such a part of, he lives and breathes it. And you can see, as I'm a fan of both artists, I can see with Andre 3000, like, one of his memorable verses past the Outkast era releasing music was like, to me, was like the Walk It Out remix. And he's telling you to quit wearing tall tees and like you don't, look like the man that you are and not what you could be. And it was like an elder statesman level of like wisdom or perspective. I heard Jay-Z tell you that I don't wear jerseys, I'm 30 plus. Well, I'm about to be 40, I still wear jerseys. But the stance he took on a club, almost pop, hip hop record, and like, to me, I probably could listen to Andre 3000 rap about anything, as a fan, but I respect that that's not the space he in. It's like, this is my reality, this is not what I care to share. I feel like all these albums and all these verses later, you entitled to that. And on the same end, if you feel like rapping every day, like a Lil Wayne, like, I don't feel like he's falling off. I hear a new verse and I'm like, damn, like, he's still sharp.
Yeah, that nigga still rap.
Like that, and that's why I say I feel like I fall somewhere in between. That like, I don't want to do it if I don't feel like compelled or inspired to do it, or if it's not something that like moves me toward, that point of sharing or creativity. And as long as I feel like it's viable, it's worthwhile, then I want to do it. Like, in that long absence, I mean, I put out like a 4 Jacking for Beats. I put out a For My Foes Part 2 because at that moment I felt compelled to do it. You know what I'm saying? What maybe not as introspective as the album I just put out, but I probably heard a beat and was like, man, I'd kill that beat, or whatever. And it's like, I don't feel like I should fight those urges.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's certain things that I'm like, man, I don't really. I talked about my child being born. I talked about, the feelings that came with that. I talked about, that don't mean I want to rap about the first day of school. You know what I'm saying? I might not put that in song form. I might feel like that's not what I care to share. So on either side, I feel like artists should move off inspiration. And, as I feel them. To say this ain't, if you want to play his flute, like,
Play your flute.
That's cool too. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's funny that
It's actually not a flute.
Well,
he's playing, what do you call them? Wind, and he playing wind instruments.
Yeah,
All
wind instruments.
The shit that you would have to exhale into.
I mean, but that's cool too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's music, so I guess it gets touchy as fans of his music. It's like, well, we want to hear your vocals. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes, as I was a fan before I was an artist of rap. Like, sometimes we can be selfish as fans too, because it was probably a space when, I don't want to say I ever got tired of people being like, when you gonna drop something? But like, when I was probably in the lowest or most detached points, it's kind of like, I would probably give you a token answer or soon or whatever, just to kind of next question or move forward. But I had to appreciate that people want that, and he probably does. But on the other end, it's kind of like, man, if I don't have it to give, the same thing you said, like, I'll give you everything, what I'm gonna have left. You know what I'm saying? Like, or I gotta internalize some of this to be able to pour it out.
Yeah. That's real. So, speaking of getting older and then at some point figuring out when it's time to hang it up, with being an artist, especially independent, it doesn't come with a 401k plan. It doesn't come with health insurance.
Same way, like I just said, when you retire, you don't want to go back to work. That was the whole fucking point. And I think we both look at it that same way, like in real life.
Yeah, for sure. Even touching on the topic of large power independence, I think there's a lot of value in ownership, and even coming out of initial situations or seeing how deals are structured and otherwise, I thought it was vital to create a situation where there are residuals and owning the material so that you can get paid moving forward. So I have something to leave behind, and as an asset. A lot of times in certain structures you get paid once. And like I said, if you don't recoup, like you never get paid again. Like, those larger numbers you were talking about are similarly valued deal. And I probably didn't see 1% of the whole value of it. And, not to say there wasn't money spent, but looking back, like I probably generated 10,000% of what I made, from the structure of that. And the same way I said, had that worked, I felt like I would have not necessarily hit a wall, but would have been on a decline. And I'd argue, and the metrics might support it, that my music is as viable today as it's ever been. And more importantly than that, I own it. You know what I'm saying? So like that's one of the things. I mean, there's tons. That's another conversation as far as the rest of it. But as an independent artist, that's one of the things. Is like you said, like I don't get a deduction for healthcare and otherwise or something that I gotta pay for. So I had to create, like, gotta make sure something's coming in for the stuff that's going out because I gotta manually do it. You know what I'm saying? But I do. When we were talking about good deals, bad deals, I do think ownership, is something to be mindful of because, I'm still in a spot. Everybody's one hit away. The song we go do after the show tonight could be the biggest songs of our career. And ultimately, like, it's going to propel the rest of my catalog forward too. As people go to that hit or that new thing or this trendy thing, it's viral on TikTok, they going to go and find, Step Brothers 3. They're going to go find Red October. They're going to find Cold Turkey or, whatever else. And, fortunately, like, still, there's still residuals that come with all that, funnel our way.
Would you ever sell your catalog? A lot of people doing that right now.
Man, I used to be a big professional wrestling fan, and Ted DiBiase once, his theme song used to say, "Everybody's got a price." So I don't want to say I wouldn't, but it would, have to probably be some life-changing number for like everybody around me, kind of thing. If a buyer that got that kind of budget.
Yeah, definitely. Because I just put out 11 records. That's a lot of catalog just in itself. So
Exactly.
Yeah, we had to. That's gonna take some real negotiating right there. That's that long oval shaped table. When they gotta write the number on a piece of paper and slide it to me.
Right.
Yeah. So I can say, I don't know. No, I had to. Yeah, we got it. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's some shit. Like we said earlier, I can't really say yay or nay to that until that moment presents itself. I've had a few offers for a catalog, but like the negotiation phase was during this run. It was about my pre-existing catalog, and when I added about, I think I was at like 6. When I added 6 tapes to it, one, the numbers didn't make enough sense, and two, they feel like they feel like reaching back to get the money I was gonna want for the next 6. And I'm like, I got 6 more. I don't fuck y'all talking about. But either way, I said that to say, if the moment presents itself and it's worth it, then, maybe so. If not, then,
Got you.
Right. Okay, so you guys have been here giving away a lot of gems, from all the stuff that you've learned, that you're passing down. And one of the common things that you both are saying that me and Capo also have in common is we're super dads. I don't know the stereotype. I don't know one deadbeat dad. All my friends are super dads. But in your life, this almost 40 years, everything that you've learned, all the people that you've been around, millionaires, billionaires, all this stuff, what would you say is the single most piece of powerful advice that you received that you would want to pass down to your kids?
I would have to say to follow your gut. I mean, I can't really. Money means different things to different people. Like I say it a lot. They go get the money. I say that because you don't really have a choice. You got to go get the money. Otherwise, you'd live under a bridge. And even they want some money because they got like fucking, them fucking signs, homeless with 9 kids and all that extra shit. But either way, the money is important. No, I don't mean the money is the only thing that's important, but you can't do shit without it. So I wouldn't push that as advice, like go get the money. That's in real time, I think that goes without saying. You don't have a choice but to do that. But people see money differently. Like, for me, I gotta provide. So the amount of money I need is, it's different than a person with one child. But that ain't to say that his wants or his desires ain't the same. That's important as well. We call them vices, but in real time, you kind of need other things other than responsibility to function. Shit, if all we're gonna do is, wake up, work, and provide, then we wouldn't buy TVs. We wouldn't have phones with all the gadgets and shit on it. You need entertainment. You need, release. But, it's for the kids, shit could be different. My kids may not have 8 kids. So, reaching a certain point financially may not be as important. But what is important is going with your gut. Because in every aspect in life, I think every time I ever second guess my gut was when I made the worst decisions. A lot of shit, a lot of times you do something and, shit happened the way you knew it would happen. And you say, man, I knew better than that. And, I think that's the greatest piece of advice, because I think that works in every aspect of life, and not just once you're an adult, not just once you got responsibility. That's just period.
Yeah, I would say believe in yourself and be true to yourself. And as far as like parenting thing goes, or just like you said, advice that came my way, however it may have, that's one of the biggest things that I hope to instill in my child is confidence. Because, that can a lot of times chart your course for you. It's not that far from what he's saying, like second guessing yourself and otherwise, but like believe in yourself, be true to yourself, because the same way, like I think there's room to be satisfied with, whatever becomes of it. Even as my child is getting into like sports and things, I'm like trying to like try your best, do your best, and that's really all that matters. Like you won't always be able to control the outcome, but you can control your effort, and that's right in the same lines of like believing in yourself, being true to yourself. Like I believe that's what got me here. That's what got us here collectively, and and separately. But that would be the advice that I would like try to pass down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Starlito Don Trip, the Step Brother.